3, 2, 1, fire.
Hey, welcome to Monday's edition of It's Your Call. I am John Mielke, your host. It's Your Call brought to you by McCarthy Automotive, 1150 Heron Road, mccarthyautomotive.ca. Just amazing old-time service for your vehicle. People who truly care. 6 bays, open 5 days a week, 1150 Heron Road, McCarthy Automotive. All right, welcome to it. The number is on your screen if you are watching. Well, actually, the number is not on your screen. Let's fix that right now. Well, you know what would help? If I actually put up the right, there we go. All right, 613-604-6464. There it is. I almost put up a different number for a different show, 941-725-6455 if you were listening in the States. I hope you're enjoying your Cyber Monday, getting all those deals and stuff. Oh, yeah, raking it in. Nothing says I love you, Merry Christmas. I clicked a thing, had someone else deliver it. It was already wrapped. And here it is, thinking of you. There you go. Nice. Nick Vanderbrook, of all people. Nick is busting my chops for not having the phone number on the screen. Nick, who prides himself now on the Nick and Joe show Wednesday nights here on BTR, of now knowing when to put the phone number on the screen. Thanks for letting me play hooky, by the way, on Friday. I've taken on a new morning show, and it's just I got a million and one things going on. I need to figure out what's what. And Friday, I just hit that wall and just needed to take that time. And I'm glad I did. Just put me in a better frame of mind, he says, as he trips over his own words. Today, I want to talk about leadership. What is your definition of a leader as it pertains to your workplace, as it pertains to perhaps your church, as it pertains to, I don't know, politics and maybe our country? In your opinion, I'd love for you to give me some examples. Who do you consider to be a true leader based on your definition of what a leader is? Who in this country is a true leader? Maybe you look to a hockey team, a football team, a baseball team, someone who's sporting the C on their jersey, for example. That's leadership. That's what they award the C to, a great leader. To me, and I've read a lot of Simon Sinek's books, and I subscribe to a lot of his beliefs on what a leader is. A leader is someone who is putting others ahead of themselves. You know, when a company says, we need to cut back on salaries, a leader says, well, we're going to start with mine. Before I go to my employees and say I need to lay people off, I'm going to say I've taken a hit in order to try and minimize the damage to the company. That's a leader, in my opinion. Simon Sinek defines leadership as this. Leadership, he says, is a choice, not a rank. Anyone in an organization can be a leader. He goes on to say, it's choosing to look out for the person on your left and to look out for the person on your right. Chrissy's definition of a leader. Thank you, Chrissy. She's on Twitch. She says, someone who cares and sets a great example, runs a great team. Daniel Alfredson was a great leader. Okay, yes, those are great examples of leaders. Fantastic. But why do you consider them leaders? What is leadership? And Simon Sinek, it begins with why, I believe was his first book. He's got a few out there. Does a lot of great TED Talks. He says the three most important leadership traits are as follows: selflessness, empathy, grace under fire. Kim says, I love Simon's perspective on leadership as well. Absolutely. He defines leadership like none other. The three most important leadership traits: selflessness, empathy, grace under fire. Now, I ask this because watching and reading a lot of the testimony that's coming out regarding the use of the Emergency Measures Act, I've already articulated on a number of occasions how frustrated I am at not being able to find any leaders in this country. True leaders. Inspiring leaders who have our best interest, who will do away with benefits to them in order for others to succeed around them. To me, on my radio station, for example, I started this thing, and by default, that makes me the leader. But I take that very, very seriously. I will succeed when the people around me succeed. I will focus my attention on making sure that the other people who are participating in what I have done here have all the tools that I can give them in order that they succeed. When they succeed, I succeed. Isn't that what a leader is? Joshua, leadership is the opposite of whatever Trudeau does. So this is where I'm going with this. Pierre Trudeau, in Chrissy's opinion, was a leader. Okay. Some will disagree. Wayne Gretzky, that's probably a better example. A couple of great leaders from the past. Kathy says a real leader is someone who builds up others' confidence, makes others feel they can do anything they put their mind to. Okay, Kathy, let's take your definition. That's a great example, and I love where you're going with that. Politics aside, and again, I don't really think I subscribe or I am, partial to one party over another. But I'm questioning our leadership in this particular moment and have for a while. Is our leadership at the federal level, i.e. Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government, and let's just put Jagmeet Singh in there because he's propping up this government, are they building up the confidence of others? Are they building up your confidence? Are they making you feel like you can do anything you put your mind to? That's our current leadership in this country. Is that how they're making you feel by your very own definition? Lauren's Review Terry's on Twitch says a leader is someone who can analyze a problem in a non-biased fashion and use common sense to solve it. Aha. So that leads us to what I saw on Rebel News. And I don't put a whole lot of faith in Rebel News. I don't read it a lot. However, I have seen this story since, published on a variety of other sites, not the least of which the New York Post, the Daily Mail in the UK, Bloomberg, and yes, even the CBC. The convoy in Ottawa was suddenly dealt with because of the use of the Emergency Measures Act, which replaced our War Measures Act. Rebel News and others have said that the reason the convoy ended is because U.S. President Joe Biden, again, U.S. President, not Canadian President, not Canadian Prime Minister, a leader of a whole other country, President Biden, Rebel says, ordered Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to dismantle the Canadian Freedom Convoy over fears that the nationwide protests against vaccine mandates would start impacting trade in the United States. Hey, Justin, that's affecting my bottom line. You need to put an end to this right now. Oh, okay. Is that leadership? Should a foreign leader be able to have that kind of say and that kind of influence over our elected officials for matters happening on our own soil? Kathy answers the question regarding her definition. A real leader, she says, is someone who builds up others' confidence, makes others feel they can do anything they put their mind to. And I asked, by your definition, is our leadership making you feel that way? Kathy says, nope. Trudeau and the Liberals have beat Canadians down, taken away our self-esteem. And maybe that's why we're not engaged, not paying attention to things like the U.S. president. The U.S. president told our prime minister what to do in this situation because it's affecting his country's bottom line. Wow. Wow. I have struggled, says Chris, to vote in many provincial and federal elections in recent years, including turning down my ballot at the polls many times. I don't necessarily agree with that, Chris, but I understand it. Chris says, you nailed it. We don't have leaders. We have partisan divisiveness, little compromise. I haven't seen a flexible, thoughtful leader since Chrétien. Yeah, Chrétien's a pretty good example. Love or hate the guy, he led. This is how it is. Remember when the United States invaded Iraq and Chrétien said, we're not going. That took some intestinal fortitude. That took some big ones to turn to the United States and say, we're not going with you. We don't believe in this campaign. Listen, let's not kid anybody. There's nothing that Canada is going to bring to the table when the U.S. invades Iraq that the U.S. hasn't already got, right? Canada, to the U.S., Canada's that little brother. You like him. He's cute, fun to have around, but really, when it comes to playing with the big kids, he's really just getting in your way. Canada's not bringing anything to the table to resolve any sort of conflict like that. So now we find out Biden calls Trudeau and says, yeah, hi, this is costing us money down here, so fix this. And look, I recognize the U.S. is our biggest trading partner. They have some influence. But is that what it took for the prime minister to finally just say, nope, can't go on with this convoy anymore. Better invoke the Emergencies Act. Joe Biden's not happy with me. Is that a leader? Oh my gosh, were the commercials leading up to when Justin Trudeau was elected as prime minister? Remember the Justin Trudeau is not a leader. Do those hold true? Back to your comments. And again, we invite your phone call, 613-604-6464. And guess what I forgot to do? I forgot to put the video link up on itsyourcall.ca. I apologize. Chrissy, what? Holy heck, not impressed. Can we not handle our own problems without USA butting in? Yikes, we have a problem in Canada big time. Well, apparently not. And whether you're listening to Police Chief Soley, whether you're listening to the RCMP, whether you're listening to CSIS, the amount of disorganization at every single level, from our police forces to our municipal elected officials, to our provincial officials, to our federal officials, I'm not seeing anything in the pages and pages and pages and countless hours of testimony that allows me to find anybody anywhere in this who was actually a leader, who stepped up and said, follow me. Here's how we get this done. Save for the Premier of Ontario when it came to the blockades in Windsor. And you know what? In Alberta as well, they resolved the situation there. But as it pertains to the convoy and the protest in Ottawa, who in this poop pile would you consider to be a leader in all this? It certainly appears to me that amongst, listen, you may not support the convoy, but it was organized, and the people who organized it, they, by the definitions I gave you from Simon Sinek, certainly exhibited leadership. They put themselves out there. They stood up for the people who were behind them. They made decisions. Maybe the wrong decisions, but they made them. Ann says, no one was a better leader than Stephen Harper. It had to be said. Okay. Joshua says the he's just ready ads, or he's just not ready ads. Joshua, I believe, is what you're going for. Ann says, and as to Ketche, I'm sorry, but even though I love the guy, there was a slimy backroom deal aspect to that guy that I despised. Remember the golf ball stunt? No. But refresh my memory. Kathy says, I don't think it was only Biden stepping in to say enough is enough. I think the fact the convoy is making Trudeau look bad on the world stage. Okay, but that's not a leadership then issue. That's someone afraid for the optics and afraid for their reelection. That's not leading. And I don't think you disagree with me on that. Craig says the borders were open prior to the Emergencies Act being implemented. Why didn't it last 24 hours? Why hasn't that question been asked and answered? Right? How was it affected? Look, the blockade at Windsor, and Stelco weighed in on this. Canadian Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland emailed staff February 10th, stating that the White House was, quote, very worried that their northeastern car plants would be shut down if Trudeau didn't stop the convoy within 12 hours. On February 13th, so 3 days later, Freeland met with the CEO of Stelco, one of the largest steel companies in Canada, who informed the minister that the blockades were significantly impacting their business. Okay, the blockade at Windsor is one thing. How does a protest on Wellington Street in Ottawa impact trade with the U.S.? Sure, getting steel over the border, that's one thing. By the way, we have other ways to get things over the border. We don't just have a land border. It's not convenient. I understand that, to get stuff to the east or the west coast and get it on a ship or, of course, by rail. And there's also other borders. David says, Doug Ford recognized this fact that trade with Ontario was being compromised when the international bridge was blocked, other than just a lot of finger pointing. Yeah. 100%. And he did something about it. He stepped up and he said, here's how we're going to handle it. Rightfully or wrongfully, and you may disagree with his decision, did, in that moment at least, did the Premier of Ontario not exhibit some leadership? He made a decision. Here's how it was going to be, and recognized, and a lot of it had to do with the auto workers. Our auto industry was in a lot of trouble. If we can't get parts from the States and they can't get parts from us, ain't no cars getting built. That affects our economy. It affects our labor force, people getting paid, being able to pay taxes. He made a decision that he felt was best for his province. Cleared the blockade. But as for the convoy in Ottawa, that wasn't how in the world would that affect trade with the U.S.? Great point, Craig. That border was open. So what business is it of Joe Biden's? That aside, I have no issue with the President of the United States calling the Canadian government and saying, here's our position, here's what we'd like you to do. I have no issue with that. Obviously, I recognize that there is an impact to the U.S. from all things that happen north of the border and vice versa. When it comes to the economy and trade, we are one and the same. We depend on each other. Absolutely. For that, I listen, fine. Let whoever the Prime Minister of England happens to be at this particular moment in time, I've lost track. Let them call and let them have an opinion. Great. Have an opinion. But leadership isn't going, yes, Mr. Biden, whatever you say, Mr. Biden. Mr. Biden has no authority in Canada. We're a sovereign country. It's one thing for him to impose his wishes and his feelings, etc., on all things U.S., but are you not worried about a prime minister who's like, oh, gee, Joe's upset. Now I need to fix this. Add to that all the other things that Justin Trudeau was obviously worried about. His image, blah, 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 blah. Tony says, we've had 7 years to observe this juvenile imbecile, and you ask if he exhibits leadership? I wouldn't follow this fool to an outhouse. Look, again, Tony, and I appreciate your comment. Of course, I appreciate your comment. I have to. I have to respect the office that this person holds. I'm questioning some of the decision-making processes, obviously. I'm questioning the advice that our prime minister is being given. And yeah, all of those questions lead me to wonder, is this the right person for the job? And knowing everything that you know now that went on during this convoy, how it was handled, the testimony that's been given, what the RCMP has had to say, what CSIS has had to say, what municipal leaders have had to say, what police departments have had to say. I mean, first off, Should the Emergency Measures Act have been put in place? Did it meet the criteria? A judge is going to officially decide. I'm not satisfied that this was anywhere near justified. So again, and we've talked about this on the show before, okay, so what happens then to our prime minister and to the government officials who authorized the Emergency Measures Act to be put in place in the first place? Nothing? A leader would have had a solution. A leader on a municipal level would not have allowed truckers to park at a publicly funded ballpark as a staging area. A leader would have had a plan, and it sounds like the police, in some way, shape, or form, had a plan at some stage to find a way out of this, and Trudeau wasn't satisfied with it and went ahead with Emergency Measures Act. That's my take on it. Kelly says Trudeau's not a leader. He described Convoy supporters as fringe misogynists. Yep. No, these are tax-paying Canadians who are concerned and exercising their right to protest. Again, fair is fair. I don't like when people call the prime minister names. I get it. He's an elected official, and it's very quick and easy for us to name call, etc. Again, I have to have some, to me, and you do you, but I have to respect the office. He is a duly elected prime minister. He may not be a leader in my eyes, but he is the prime minister. So fair is fair. Okay? I don't like name calling as it pertains to the prime minister or other government officials. I don't like the fact that he resorted to name calling to the protesters as well. Kelly, your point is exactly spot on. You know, fringe misogynists. Millions of Canadians are not all fringe, says Kelly. Seriously, dividing statements to keep us at odds with each other. Leaders, unite, not divide. Love that. You're absolutely right. I agree with you 100%. Joshua says, here's a question to consider. How much indecision or wrong decisions would Trudeau and those around him would have to have made to think the Emergencies Act is our best recourse? I mean, to me, and you know, most politicians, most people who find their way into government circles have a background in law. Yes? I mean, Justin Trudeau's father was a lawyer, had a law degree. Chrétien was a lawyer. Somebody had to look at this and say, under the law, we have to meet this, you know, these criteria. I don't think any of those were met. Our government was not about to be overthrown. There had to be another solution. And this is, I guess, what I'm getting at. A leader, a true leader, somewhere in all of this mess would have had a solution. I'm not seeing or hearing of anybody who had that. That's concerning. And yeah, it should be, at the end of the day, the highest elected official in the land, should it not be? That being the prime minister, who ultimately, it was his government who tabled the bill to invoke the Emergency Measures Act. Over to Myriad. Various levels of law enforcement and government didn't want to step on each other's toes. Ottawa presents that unique challenge. However, it doesn't excuse the lack of leadership that you're referring to. Yeah, Myriad, I'm with you. There are all kinds, and this is what scares me. If we couldn't figure our way out of this situation, which they told us they were coming, Canadians cheered as the trucks rolled across the Trans-Canada Highway, the largest geographical country, save for Russia, on the planet. I mean, we deal with this stuff all the time. When, okay, a world president or royalty or, you know, like other world leaders come here, we have very established protocols for how the RCMP plays a role into their arrival and how we're going to move them around this city and this country. The OPP play a role in that. The Ottawa Police Service is called in. They have a role in that. But for this, we didn't have some sort of plan as to who had the ultimate authority to call the shots, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now we don't want to step on each other's toes. No, that's not leadership. Leadership is not, I'm worried about stepping on your toes. Leadership is, I stepped on your toes because I had to. Like it or love it, like it or not, I I had to make a decision. I'm sorry your feelings got hurt. Leadership is like that. Tony says, personally, I disrespect it because his presence in the PMO is an insult to our democracy. Tony, you and I are obviously going to disagree on that, and that's fine. That's fine. You're being civil about it. I get it. He's the elected leader of our government. And in every poll that you read, and read what you want into the polls or not, most Canadians love this guy. He's our prime minister. And he's been elected as such 3 times in a row. I get your frustration. I do. And I appreciate your comments. Anne says it's kind of late in the game to wonder if Trudeau is qualified for the job. Okay, so I'm not wondering. I guess, okay, let me rephrase my question. How in the hell are other people not seeing this? And what is it that compels them to think, yep, that's okay. That's what I expect. That's what, I'm okay with. You know what I'm saying? Kathy says, with the amount of lies that Trudeau and his Liberal Party have told over the last 7 years, do we know for a fact that Biden called Trudeau, or was that just an excuse for Trudeau to use the Emergency Measures Act? Hey, it's being reported, that there's apparently documents that have been released that speak to this, that back this up. Show's called It's Your Call. I'm here for you most weekdays. Friday, I needed the Friday off. It's brought to you by McCarthy Automotive, who I have used for servicing my vehicles for years now. Just a chance thing brought them to my attention. I've used them ever since. You know what? It's little things. It didn't dawn on me. I went for an oil change a few weeks ago. It's little things that they do that you may not even become aware of. Like the fact that when I use my auto starter now, somebody at McCarthy obviously took the time to go through all the menu items, on the little computer screen on my car and figure out that, hey, John's seat heat and steering wheel heat are not coming on automatically when he uses his key fob. Somebody, near as I can figure out, McCarthy took the time to make sure that actually happens. It's never happened before. Now it does. Little things like that. They care. McCarthy Automotive, please. If you're considering, going someplace for service, tires, batteries, exhaust, if you're running fleet vehicles, McCarthy Automotive, 1150 Heron Road. Let's go to Chris. It's evident there was an abuse of power. The power to do anything about it lies in the hands of Jagmeet Singh. He's shown his hand. The only thing we can do about it is hold him to account at the next poll. Chris, you raise an interesting, I don't even know if you intended to do that, abuse of power. And maybe that's why we're in the situation we're in. We're not electing leaders. We're electing people who feel and that they have power, that they have power over us, that they are the ultimate authority. Somewhere along the line, they seem to have forgotten that no, they are our employees. They work for us. The job description is here. There are decisions to be made. You are now hired as leader. Make those decisions in my best interest. I'm not handing anybody power. I have the power. Chris, you're exactly right. You have the power. It's called voting. Maybe therein lies the problem. The confusion on the actual definition of what it takes to be a leader. Someone right now feels they have power. I want leaders. Who amongst our government officials do you consider to be a leader right now? All right, let's go to Glenn. Glenn, Mielke, this whole situation was handled like a childish game, and Trudeau was 1,000% wrong, but he'll escape, and he should not. He is not and never was a leader. Yeah, he will escape. And this is the thing. If you and I abuse the law or break the law, and if it's determined by this judge that, in fact, our government broke the law, who pays the price? If nobody pays the price, what's the point in having a law? And if it is determined that this was in fact put in place and should not have been, should the prime minister resign? Should there be a no confidence vote? I mean, there would be if, as we've already discussed, we didn't have a third party propping this government up. We would have an opportunity. I mean, the opportunity still exists, I guess. Means Jagmeet Singh has to go back on his word. And by the way, I would be okay with that. Oh my gosh. Would that not exemplify leadership if Jagmeet Singh were to do that? You know what? I made a mistake. I own it. This needs to be put back to Canadians to decide whether or not this person should remain as leader of our country. That would be leadership. Ooh, I love how this came full circle. That was unplanned. I love that. David says if Trudeau had met with them and heard their grievances, we likely wouldn't have had the mess we did. 100%. Agree with you 100%. Anne, who keeps asking if there's a show today. Anne, there is always a show today. All you need to do on Facebook is click my name, and it will tell you when the show is. And and I love it. I'm not trying to be condescending when I say that. I know it comes across as such. And go to Facebook, click my name, and if I've posted the link for the show, it'll be there. All right. Or always assume that there's a show at 2. There will be the occasional day where I can't show up for whatever reason, Friday being that example. I love that you're here, Ann. She says, let's face it, those who voted in this guy, i.e. Trudeau, and still love him are not really deep thinkers. If he kills a dog, oh great, he's making the world safe for cats. I just shake my head. All the liberal ladies at my gym were totally okay with the Emergencies Act stripping us of our rights, not just the truckers. Well, the truckers were a big visible thing, right? Easy to point your fingers at that. Tony, the office is respected, says Craig. The individual holding that office earned the respect by voters. I dislike Justin Trudeau as much as the next guy, but when he's publicly spoken of, his name should be used. Yep, I don't like all the nicknames for him, etc. And there have been nicknames for all kinds of other prime ministers. This is not an exclusive, thing to Trudeau. There's a lot of frustration right now. And people in this country, I love that I live in a country where we get to express our displeasure with our elected leaders. And that's kind of at the crux of this whole thing, isn't it? We expressed our displeasure. We called them names. We had signs up. In fact, there's still signs up. You see them on vehicles all the time. And for some reason, it seems to be that the person who holds that office right now has a real hard time with being called names. And a leader would look at that and use it as leverage to make themselves better. Or at least use it as an inspiration to make themselves better. You cannot get into public office and expect that you are going to please 100% of the people 100% of the time. If you get 51% happy, you're doing well. And that's a lot of the reason why I never put my name on a damn ballot in the first place. I knew that as passionate as I am about things and as well-intentioned and committed as I would be to things, I would have a very, very, very difficult time accepting the fact that there could be 60% of people not liking the decisions that I'm making on their behalf, who would be very vocal, and I don't handle that well. I recognize that, which is why I should not be in that position. You got to have a thick, thick, thick skin and let that roll off your back and understand where it comes from and why it's coming from that place. A leader is able to see that, detect it, filter through it, and become better because of it. This person seems to want to run and hide from that. In fact, with Bill C-11, in a roundabout kind of way, make it illegal for any of us to even question that. That's scary. That's not leadership. It's not democracy either. Satan's Playmate. Not many people pay attention. They are busy streaming fake reality shows online. Yeah, The Masked Singer. Don't even get me started. Craig says, I consider Pierre Poilievre a leader. Okay. I don't know. We're going to find out, aren't we? He certainly seems to say some of the right things. I question some of his condescension, some of his sarcasm. I'm not sure if that's leadership material, but okay, we'll see. We'll see. The proof will be in the next election, won't it? Joshua says Queen Elizabeth was a leader because she always defined her reign as serving the people. Politics is a service at a score. Yep, I would agree with that. Kathy says, here's my thought on why Trudeau has been elected 3 times. As a Canadian, we don't want to believe or see that a government elected would destroy a country they are to represent. It's sad to admit that Trudeau was not and is not a leader. A leader's not, I mean, to me, this person comes across as someone who's very much in it for themselves. The WE scandal, all the other scandals. And look, I say that with all due respect. I know a lot of people who know Justin Trudeau and know his family and speak very highly of him. I'm sure he's a very likable guy. I'm sure he and I would get along famously at a piano bar and sing songs together. Sure. But on this, I'm not seeing leadership material there. Tony says leadership is not about the next election. It's about the next generation. Well, that's a great quote. I don't know who to attribute that to, Tony, but that's a great quote. Thank you. We need an amendment to our laws, says Glenn, that would allow us to recall our leaders. Okay. I hope you write to your MP with that, because that's where it's going to begin. Ann says, thanks for the answer on the show. I'll stop asking and continue listening and commenting. And I say it with love. I do. You're here and I appreciate it. I'm just, I'm so busy doing a multitude of things, and you got to understand, I cannot be tech support for everybody. I'm in the middle of training 3 or 4 new announcers on the radio station. I'm running 3 or 4 businesses. I'm producing comedy shows and drag shows all over the country and being turned in a million different directions. I want to help you. I do. So just to make it easy and on you, yes, there is a show every single day. Very, very, very occasionally, there may come a day where I'm just too tired and I can't even get notice posted on time. But if I can give you a heads up that I'm going to be away, I will give you a heads up that I'm going to be away. All right. Otherwise, I intend to be here with the show. Craig says signs are showing up. A spring election is a possibility. Well, it's always a possibility, I suppose. He goes on to say, I've been in business all my life. Not all employees of mine agreed at first with my decisions. Well, that's fine. They're employees, right? He goes on to say, however, afterwards they did. It's important to make decisions that are fair and equitable for the majority. Yes, and again, a true leader, when it comes to someone who runs their own business, is able to recognize, I need to make a sacrifice for myself before I have to sacrifice someone else and their well-being. A leader, look, I have to make the hard decisions, Craig, which is, I think, is kind of what you're articulating. I have to make the hard decisions. I'm the one who's made the investment. I'm the one who's accepting the risk. I'm the one who's hired you, but I'm doing all of this with your best interest at heart, as opposed to, what? You don't see what I see? Bye. In some circumstances, that read Simon Sinek's books. He defines it better than I ever will. A couple of last comments. David says, remember, Trudeau initially ran on being transparent. Well, so much for that. Ann says, see, John, it's your own fault. You give an impression you know much. Yeah, I know, Ann. I know. It's a vicious cycle. Let's go to text 613-604-6464. This person says, unfortunately, the next question is, what would they do next time? They were asked, did they talk to the people? No. Had they at least talked to them, they could have said they made an effort. They, the government, did not make that effort. And finally, a number from the 613. Hi, John. On holiday in Brighton, UK, maybe 5% or less masked over here, says Mort. Oh, my goodness. Young woman who brought injunction displayed leadership. That's a great example, Mort, and one that Lowell would go to a lot. Yep. In all of that, you're right. That's the one person who exhibited leadership. And the sad reality is she's probably not someone who is ever likely to run for public office. But gosh, again, in my never-ending search for common ground, isn't that exactly the kind of person you'd like to see run for office? Isn't that who we need? Maybe we could agree on that. Itsyourcall.ca is the website. If you ever missed the show, no worries. You can find this podcast on the free BTR app. We're on Spotify. We're on Google. We're on Apple. Itsyourcall.ca has your show links. And we'll be back tomorrow.